Good afternoon, lovelies. This is Black and Indigenous American. I hope everyone is doing well. Your girl is happy to have a day off. It's July the 3rd, obviously, and tomorrow is Independence Day. And so I decided to get on here and do this video because I came across an article. Now let me pump my brakes right about now. Okay, let me just pump my brakes. For those who have been keeping up with my YouTube channel, right? You've probably noticed that I've kind of went in another direction as far as things in my life that are relevant. And when I first started my YouTube channel, I spoke heavily on race relations and Black folks and Native American folks and mixed folks. And so over the past few years, I've kind of gotten past that because I've been surrounded by people who look past that kind of stuff, right? It's like once they get to know you, you family. You are part of the family. And so I say all of this because, I've been focusing on eating clean foods, spiritual cleansing, all of that great stuff that I think matters. Also working on my financial expansion and things of that nature. I'm about to turn the next page as far as a chapter in my life. I say all of this because I come across this article, and it's about a family that I've gotten to know in the DC area. And the mother, she has a desire to raise her children as close to her culture as possible. Even though she does not live on a reservation, she lives, again, in a DC area, and she knows that there are more opportunities for her kids in a metropolitan area. I mean, hello, our nation's capital, right? At the same time, it's like almost like a catch-22 when you have indigenous people who live in urban communities, right? There's this disconnect sometimes. And so she's trying very hard and doing a great job, might I add, doing a wonderful job with these children. And I say all of this because I guess her clan, clique, or whatever, they're matrilineal. So the children follow the customs, the culture of the mother's line. And she is Dene, and her husband is Pamunkey. Let me pause there for a second. Let me just pause right there. So anyway, I read this article and I'm excited for them. And, I left comments on social media about them and things of that nature. And long story short, I'm starting to read the comments. And of course, there's someone who has just got their federal recognition in the state of Virginia, already trying to play tribal police because this lady's husband is Pamunkey. Yet he's not enrolled in that particular tribe for political reasons. And I understand where he's coming from. We've had a conversation about it. We are here with that. But at the same time, here you go, this fresh off the tribal rolls Pamunkey member has something to say. And all I have to say is this individual that has something to say, and let me just put it out there. Let me just put it out there because I've said this before and I'll say it again. When Virginia's state recognized tribes were trying to get federally recognized, it was going through their whole drawn out process. And I remember saying on my channel, I said, you know what? I bet you the first tribe that gets recognized is going to be people who have blue eyes, blonde hair, and very, very fair skin. That pretty much are white folks in the state of Virginia. Okay? And at the same time, I'm not saying that makes them less, that makes them in a position where they are disqualified from even acknowledging and embracing their Indigenous American roots and their culture. I'm not even saying that. I'm not even on that bandwagon. If you are connected to Indigenous population in your region and you know about it and you want to embrace it, by all means, embrace it. But Virginia has a nasty history of putting people in boxes. You're either white or black, and if you're Native American, you better get up out of here, because if you're still here and we find out, you're dead. You're dead. That was just cutthroat, straight to the point, how it was in Virginia. And a lot of the residual mindset of so many people in the state of Virginia amongst tribal communities are still kind of stuck there. And okay. This gentleman, who is Pamunkey, has done so much for Indigenous America, especially urban Indigenous people. He has a track record. He is Pamunkey before they even got any kind of state recognized status or whatever. His mother, day in and day out, passed the traditions on, share the traditions, or at least, you know, the public traditions of their community. I've seen her at all different types of events that's linked to Indigenous American festivals, workshops, whatever you want to call it, powwows. I've seen her. She is a woman of grace, and she's a woman of integrity. And I've seen her from a distance, and I've met her a few times in person, up close, you know, just a very, almost like a generic type of conversation. But the point is, I've seen this woman around for years. For years. And whenever I see her, I see Pamunkey. She is a beautiful, amazing example of the Pamunkey people. I've met other Pamunkey people that are just as loving and embracing and all of that, but you do have those who still have that mindset of superiority because they didn't mix with Black folks. Let's put that out there. Let's put that out there. You look like a regular white person, and you are benefiting from the white culture because obviously you have white ancestry, and then you're also benefiting from your Pamunkey status when it's convenient, right? But as soon as someone who has a link to Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa to be exact, that one drop, and all of a sudden that person disqualified. Oh, you ain't one of us. Oh, you're not federal, you're not enrolled in this tribal community. So that means you're not one of us. Really? I'm going to say this again, and I've said this years ago. I'm going to say it again. You could take a Chinese person out of China But regardless of where they are, regardless, they are still Chinese. You could dress that Chinese person up in whatever custom cultural attire. That person is still Chinese. Ain't no wiping away their Chinese ethnicity. Now, the culture, the culture is different. Culture is very flexible. When it comes to someone's roots, they are who they are. But what's crazy and psychotic, in my opinion, with the way things were set up generations ago when it comes to Indigenous American, and not necessarily all of the Americas. I'm talking about the United States of America. That's what I'm pretty much talking about right now. You have to have so much indigenous blood to be qualified and recognized by the federal government that you are who you say you are, that you are who your folks, your family told you you are. Now, all of a sudden, you Indian because you got federal recognition. What are you doing with it? Are you going to reservations outside of your little box that you call a reservation? Are you going out there? Are you helping your fellow Indigenous American people, your people, Indigenous people of color? Or are you sitting up on your high horse, or what you think is a high horse? In my opinion, they're crumbs from the master table. Crumbs. And you got your nose stuck up in the air, talking down to someone who has strong roots in his indigenous identity and who he is. Strong. In this particular family, the mother chooses or has chosen to raise her boys up as Denny as much as possible, living in a metropolitan area. And she's doing everything that she can do as a mother to make sure her boys know who they are from her side of the family. And their father is Pamunkey, who is also sharing his culture. But yet you have these naysayers say, oh, well, you're not federally recognized. You're not one of us. You're just whatever. If you look at him, the dude is Native American. Let's just put it out there. There might be a splash of black up in there somewhere, but the point is, he is just as Indigenous American as anybody else. But I'm telling you, the Pamunkey are not the only ones, but you do have a significant amount of Pamunkey people who have a strong European ancestry, who are carrying around their little prize, aka tribal card, acting like that stuff don't stink. They're already talking about a casino and everything, because that apparently was an issue with the state of Virginia or the Commonwealth of Virginia, where they didn't want tribes, if they ever get federally recognized, to start building casinos. Because there's a casino in Oxon Hill, Maryland, just right across the bridge from Arlington. So when there was talk about federal recognition and everything, apparently the whole casino situation was supposed to be something that Virginia tribal members, state recognized, they weren't interested in. They just want to be recognized by the federal government. Please recognize us. Please. Could you please recognize us so we can feel like we're really who we are? Again, like I said, my videos have been, in my opinion, growth from this type of conversation is 2019. And I was hoping that we could just get past all of that, because there's strength in numbers. There's strength in numbers. And I'll say this again, because I know I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again. When our brothers and sisters from the south of the border wake up, it is on and popping. Many of them do not realize they are Indigenous American, period. They are original people from the Americas, period. Yes, they speak a European language. I speak a European language. I speak English. Many of them speak Spanish because of the colonizers, whatever language they spoke. But just because they speak Spanish and just because they're lighter skinned than somebody else, that does not mean that that cancels out their indigenous roots. And like I said, when they wake up and they understand who they are, it's going to be on and popping. On and popping. But guess what? Last time I checked, their governments, whichever country they're coming from the south of a border, I don't think, now correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that Mexico and South in the Americas, that they're worrying about how much blood, indigenous blood you have to be recognized. Many of those people probably will prefer to live Spanish, Spaniard way, Hispanic or whatever like that. And that's all they know. Because if I'm not mistaken, it was ingrained in a lot of their psyche generations ago that being linked to Native American, Indigenous American was negative. So they would much rather over here link up with the closer to Europe, the better. But for whatever reason, in the United States of America, Indigenous American people that have gone for federal recognition or are trying to get federal recognition, I think many of those people feel like in order for them to be considered a real Indian, real Native American, the government that has oppressed them for generations, centuries, they need recognition from that entity for them to feel Indigenous American, truly Indigenous American. It is sickening. It is sad. Now, don't get me wrong. I have friends who are federally recognized. I have friends who are state recognized. And this is a constant battle within their own tribal communities, where they have to be a voice for those who aren't enrolled or who chooses not to be enrolled, because they're getting sick and tired of the back and forth and the backstabbing in some circles, not all circles. They don't want to be a part of all of that. And they're torn. They're torn between keeping the traditions and, passing on to their descendants, right? Their offspring. Keeping the language and the land and everything. That is a beautiful thing. But then you have this internal fighting, internal colorism and for people that have been brought up in a household within, let's just narrow it down to Black America. I'm sure most of the people out there know what I'm talking about when it comes to colorism. Now, within my intermediate family, I was the darker shade compared to the rest of my siblings. And I remember my mother telling me years later, after I was an adult, she told me, I guess when I was in college, she was like, when my older sister was born, she was very fair skinned, light skinned, or whatever, and my dad's sisters just spoiled her. I mean, they were just in love with my sister because she, her hair texture was straighter, her skin was lighter, and then here comes me. I'm the brown baby doll, right? I have the kinkier, curlier hair. And my mom told me that when I was born, they were looking at me, wouldn't pick me up. She heard them whispering about me, wondering if that really was my dad's daughter. You know what I mean? Then my mama, being my mama, she cursed them out, right? And she was like, you treated so-and-so better than you treat, and my name. And then they would say, no, we just didn't want to, pick her up, because she's so small. I'm like, nope, that's a lie. That's a lie. And it's a lie because everybody else is light skinned in this family. All these kids have just been born. They're light skinned. Y'all eat them up. So I remember her telling me about this, which I was not surprised because when I was growing up, there was always comments about people's dark skin. Let's just put it that way. So all of this colorism stuff is alive and well. When it comes to indigenous tribal communities, it is alive and well as well. In some circles, people are frowned upon when their skin is too light. Now, that hasn't been my experience, but I'm not saying that it's not someone else's experience. But there are certain situations where one or two kids come out light and everybody else is dark. And so those two lighter skinned people, they catch it hard too, because they were like, oh, you're too light, or, white boy or white girl. And all they want to do is feel like they belong in the family that they were born into. And they want to be able to be who they are. But yet, because their skin is lighter than everybody else, they're looked at as if they're inferior. And again, I'm still trying to figure that out, because on my end, light skin has been looked upon as better. But anyway, back to the article. So I'm reading through the article. Everything seems great. The mother of these three boys, Dene, she goes to their schools. She does some demonstrations. She shows them how she does bead work or whatever like that. During Native American Month in November, she has gone to her boys' school and done some demonstrations and, things like that. And some other things that is just honorable that she has done thus far, raising her boys. And with the help of her husband, who is Pamunkey, by the way, he also shares his customs and his traditions, and they spend time with his mom. And his mom is, like I said, she on that powwow circuit, and she go to different events, and she does speaking engagements and public speaking, everything like that. And again, that woman, whenever I see her, I see Pamunkey. And she is my complexion, y'all. She's my complexion, and she know her stuff, and all she doing is trying to keep the culture alive as authentic as possible. as authentic as possible. And you still have people who are enrolled and got that piece of paper, that little golden ticket, aka tribal card. So caught up in that mindset. I'm just like, why are you so caught up in that? There's more to being Indigenous American or a person of color or whatever you want to call it. It's more to that than that piece of paper. And again, I don't think I will ever understand it. And I don't want to understand it. I really don't. I don't want to understand it. So the past few years, I've met so many amazing people. I've met some well-known people. The one that comes to mind right now is Dennis Banks. I've met him a few times. Right before he passed away, I met him in DC in front of the Lincoln Memorial. And I remember when I went to shake his hand, he held on to my hand. And he grabbed my wrist or whatever. He held onto it and he looked me in my eyes and smiled. And I don't remember what he said because, you know, it was one of those quick conversations. But that wasn't the first time I met him. I've met him a few times. But someone like Dennis Banks, some people may have some negative things to say about his character. But you know what? The person I met later in his life, I'm thankful that I was able to be in the same space as him. He was one of the members of the American Indian movement. Again, his name was Dennis Banks. And then again, I've met some other great people as well that may not necessarily have been on the national level as far as recognition. But I say all of this, it's like I've met so many people who are connected to whatever tribe they're connected to, be it federally recognized, state recognized or not. And I've been welcomed, y'all. I've been welcomed. And sometimes you just have to surround yourself around people who are awoke. They're awakened. They are awakened. And then some people say woke, you know, like they recognize who you are. They accept who you are. They treat you like family. They treat you with respect. And when you surround yourself around people like that, who cares what these trolls on the internet and whoever else that's stuck on whatever, who cares what they think? Who cares? Especially if you are surrounded by people with influence. I've met tribal leader, spokesperson from the Acoma Pueblo people last year, because I remember I posted a video a little over a year ago when I went to New Mexico and Colorado. Remember? If you never saw that video, go check it out. It was around May of last year when I went. Anyway, so one of my good friends / loves met one of the leaders in Mississippi at African American, Native American Farmers Association, whatever meeting. And so my love was invited to go out to New Mexico to meet up with this leader who speaks at the UN in New York City, travels the world. He is pretty much the spokesperson of his tribal community. Long story short, he came out to Outer Banks because we have this event on the Outer Banks every year in April. And so he actually came from New York City, flew down to Norfolk. Then he had one of his friends who happens to be Lumbee. Again, Lumbee people, for the most part, they're in the North Carolina region. Had one of his friends drive him down to Hatteras Island, which is Outer Banks. And he spent like 2 or 3 days there, and also spent time with us in the Maryland area. And I say all of this because when he came down, he, my friend / love, whatever, and the Acoma Pueblo leader and myself, we went out on the beach, the ocean side, because there's ocean side and there's the sound side. So we were on the ocean side, and my friend said, let's, give an offering of tobacco, say a prayer, whatever, forgive those who came here and oppress, indigenous people and everybody else in their pursuit for fortune or whatever. And so we did this small little ceremony, and there was an exchange of some wampum and some other things. And he was so appreciative. He was so appreciative. He was so glad because he's from New Mexico, right? It's very dry, and I mean, it's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but the ocean, they're not near the ocean, right? They're not near ocean. They're not near, they don't have close access to, let's say, the woodlands, because, the East Coast is pretty much the woodlands area. And so when he came here, he was like, he was very appreciative. There was so much greenery, number one. And then when we were down in Outer Banks, he was so appreciative of just being there on the beach, and then the ocean, and then the ceremony. And it was just so beautiful. And I didn't share a lot of stuff on social media because I don't feel like it's, necessary to share everything. Some things just need to be kept private, right? Like ceremony, prayer, stuff like that. That needs to be kept private. So no, I didn't share all that stuff. But I just say all of this because I've met him. I actually drove him around New Mexico to and one thing about the Acoma Pueblo people, as far as his community, they are matrilineal, and the women own everything, right? They own the houses, the land, and everything. So whenever I would drop him off, I dropped him off at his sister's house because that was her house. He didn't own a house. And on top of, was it Sky City, I think it was called, if I'm not mistaken. I may be getting it wrong. But anyways, in Acoma, New Mexico. And on top of the on the Sky City, there's a church. And you all can read about the history of all this stuff later. But the houses that are up there, they are all owned by women. Men don't own it. So anyway, I remember the route, how to get to the house, because I was driving everywhere. I had a rental car. And I say all of this because, again, when you surround yourself around people who are open, who are have traveled the world, are used to seeing different people, recognize that everyone doesn't look the same. Indigenous people over here may not necessarily look like indigenous people over there. At the same time, there's a mutual respect. It's like once you surround yourself around people like that, all of those naysayers, people that nitpick at powwows, oh, he's wearing a bustle, he shouldn't wear that, or she shouldn't be wearing her shoulder out on that side because that's not. As of today, I have yet to get in full regalia. I'm not even remotely pressed to do it because sometimes in circles you will find people who are vibing very, very low. They're not great representatives of their tribal community. And if you are around certain people like that often, then you just assume that the whole group of people think like that. And it's not the case. So a lot of the haters and naysayers that I've had over the years, in particular social media, like on YouTube, and again, those comments are still there. I never deleted them. I don't block them. I let everybody see what people have to say about people like myself. And it's sad. It really is sad. But anyway, I say all of this because I really feel beyond disappointed that that article created, well, not necessarily created, it unveiled, it just showed once again that you have people who think that they are Native American because they have a tribal card and everybody else is a fake. And it's like, what are you doing for your community? Is there anything you're doing for your community? Now, I give you props. If you're keeping the language going, if you're keeping the traditions going, I give you all the props in the world. I mean, it's a catch-22 because there's room for prejudices and all of that stuff when you only around your own people all the time, and you watch Fox News, hint, hint, and it's kind of like, you know, that right there, in my opinion, breeds decisiveness, just prejudices and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's preservation, you know, for generations after generations after generations. So I can't completely knock it, but at the same time, that card should not either break or make you as an Indigenous person. Now, it should give you access to preserve it more, to get out there more, to create more programs, to keep your culture tight and keep the traditions going so you have something to pass on to the next generation. But once you get that tribal card and you're just sitting back, just look at me. Look at me. I am a real Indian. Not Indigenous American. I think that's probably the current politically correct way of saying it these days. But then you still have people say, I'm Indian. And I'm the real deal. Because I'm from North Carolina and I watch Fox News. Anyway. So the moral of this video is respect your fellow Indigenous Americans, your fellow people of color. Respect and honor. Because when you're not respecting and honoring others, you are dishonoring and disrespecting yourself. And guess what? Guess what? The people that you sticking up your nose at, sticking up your nose, your stuff don't stink. I'm sure down the line, 2, maybe 3 generations, if not 1 generation down the line, one of your descendants is going to be what you despise. So you might as well get over it right now. Hello, those who are commenting. Let me go ahead and check you guys out. So Sapa says, are you Native? Yes, I'm Indigenous American from the East Coast, born and raised in Virginia, Palm Springs region. That's my indigenous connection to the United States. I have indigenous connections to Mexicans as well, south of the border. Now, I don't have to, apparently, I don't have to prove my Sub-Saharan African connection. I find that interesting. Just wanted to put that out there. But it's not uncommon, especially in the Southeast United States of America. My combination is not uncommon. My blend is not uncommon. Not at all. Just there are many people either pass for Black or pass for white or passing as Indigenous American when it's convenient. But for the most part, my combination, it is not uncommon. And Sapa, I think you've asked me this question often. Well, not often, but quite a few times. And I believe I've answered this question on several occasions. So you says, if so, what tribe are you? I've answered this question already. I'm Occaneechi-Saponi from the tribe of Virginia. Not the Occaneechi people down in North Carolina. There is a connection historically. But as far as tribal, band, whatever you want to call it, I am not linked in the present day to the Occaneechi band of the Saponi Nation, okay? There's also the Halawa Saponi people in North Carolina. I am not connected, recent connection to the Halawa Saponi people. Now, there is a historical connection to those Saponi people. They link back to Virginia. The Occaneechi band of the Saponi Nation link back to Virginia. A lot of these state-recognized tribes in Virginia and North Carolina, South Carolina, they link back to Virginia, by the way. So that's all I'm going to say, Sapa. I've answered your question a few times, and for whatever reason, you keep asking me. But I'm done. I'm done answering your question about that. Peace and blessings, Love Legacy 500. Hey, silly songbird, how are you? Hope all is well. Thanks for watching. You say, have you tried fry bread? Yes. You know what? When it comes to fry bread, I think we should do better. And I would say also so-called soul food with the ham hocks and the fried chicken and the all of that, the so-called soul food, we need to do better. We need to do better. Fried bread is just a ball of carbs within our Indigenous American communities, as well as our African American or Black American communities. We are unfortunately plagued with diabetes. I've had three relatives thus far on my dad's side, between my grandma, my paternal grandma, and like 2 or 3 relatives, like a cousin and 2 or 3 cousins that passed away. First cousins and my grandma from diabetes, diabetic complications. Fried bread is wonderful. Biscuits are wonderful. Croissants are wonderful. All the carbs in the world is wonderful. I love my share of carbs, but I also know carbs converts over to sugar, and sugar is the enemy when it comes to our health. So yes, fried bread is delicious. Okay, it reminds me of funnel cakes, and it's wonderful, and you can dress it up and put powdered sugar and fruit and everything on it, or you can make it into a taco. But at the same time, I believe a lot of the powwows or any kind of function that is related to Indigenous American and or African American Black, I believe there needs to be a platform that is traditional Indigenous American cuisine for whatever region it is. For instance, I love the museum, the National Museum of the American Indian in DC. I go there at least once a year, right? And they are known for their food as well in the cafeteria. And if you ever been there, you know that they're set up based on regions. It's regional, like the Southwest or Northeast or Southeast or whatever. And it's seasonal too. So I want to just point that out, that restaurant has a great platform when it comes to eating foods that are indigenous to the Americas. I'm thinking of wild rice right now. Wild rice versus white rice. Stuff like that. And I just feel like powwow should get away from fried bread and Indian tacos and everything else that most food trucks have, and actually provide another option, a healthier option. Wild rice and salmon, right? Depending on the region that particular vendor is promoting, right? If it's a coastal region that they're promoting. For instance, I'm thinking of Outer Banks, or I'm thinking of Southampton, New York State. I'm thinking of the Shinnecock people, like coastal communities, tribal communities. I would think some sort of seafood, will be part of their menu, right? Obviously, you have the Three Sisters, beans, corn, and what's the other one? The Three Sisters, having a dish with the Three Sisters in it. That would be awesome. Like I said, wild rice, turkey, like I said, some sort of fish. And I'm not much of a lover of fish, but squash. Thank you. Beans, corn, squash, Three Sisters. Yes. And they actually had a dish at the National Museum of the American Indian in DC, and it was a Three Sisters dish, and it was amazing. It was the bomb. But anyway, I think fried bread is wonderful, but we can do better. Let's see. That's a native food. A lot of native foods eat. It's like what cornbread is to Black folks. Cornbread is not necessarily a Black thing. Cornbread is actually an Indigenous American thing. A lot of soul food that's linked to Black folk are actually Indigenous American. Just Black folk just prepared it differently. And, obviously that's what they call soul food. But yeah, cornbread is actually originally an Indigenous American side dish, by the way. And it's wonderful. It's very good. Sue. Okay, I love Legacy 500. You said Sue Tater Jacks. Oh, okay. Let's see. Is the original name of Virginia, which covers Virginia, Maryland. What language? What language is that, Lloyd Carty? Like what dialect? What language is that you're calling that? Whatever that is. You said is the original name of Virginia. If I'm not mistaken, I thought Virginia actually used to be all the way over to California. I thought once upon a time Virginia was like pretty much most of now the United States of America. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to have to make this phone call real quick because somebody I know is calling me. So give me a chance to make this phone call real quick. Shouldn't be long. He's in Outer Banks, by the way.
Hello.
I didn't mean to ignore you.
What?
I did not mean to ignore you.
I can't hear you.
I said I didn't mean to ignore you.
You didn't ignore me?
I said I did not mean to ignore you.
Okay.
I am doing a YouTube live video now. Can I call you back?
Yeah.
Okay, you be careful now.
Okay.
Tahole.
Okay.
Say it back.
Get
No, say it right.
down.
La peach canawe.
Like apples and fruit.
No, say it right. La peach canawe.
Like peach highway.
No. Say it right.
Like canoe.
No.
Peach,
No.
apple,
No.
grapes.
No. No, for real though. Say it right. Say it right.
No.
La peach canawe tahole walapan.
I bought a hotel today and put your name on it.
No, you didn't.
I sure did.
Look.
Signed your damn name down there.
You about to get locked up.
That's right.
All right, I have to go. Let me call you back, okay?
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Y'all didn't need to hear all of that. But anyway, he and I, we actually talk back and forth in the Lenape dialect, Algonquin, okay? And so we're both like exchanging phrases. And like just now, I just told him, see you later. It's a good day. Love you. Be careful and whatever else. And he was just playing around. Like he already knows a lot of the words and phrases. And he says a prayer in the Lenape dialect every morning. So he's doing pretty good. Me, on the other hand, I need to work on it. But he was just being silly. Anyway, let's see. So Lord, you said Senakomaka, and then you said squash. Is that what that means? Yeah, I'm a little lost on your response, Lloyd. So if you can clarify that, please. Silly Songbird. I'm related to the Creeks. Muskogee Creek Nation. I am Creek Freedman. Cool. Well, nice to meet you, Silly Songbird. Thanks for sharing your connection to your Indigenous American people. Love a Legacy 500. Blacks and African Americans are the American Indian, just enlightening those who don't know. Oh my goodness. Now that is a controversial conversation right there. And I don't have the time. I don't have the time to sit here and talk about that. But I want to say that not all Indigenous American people in the United States of America are linked to, as far as close relations, linked to Africa. Now, southeastern United States of America, that I can see being some truth in what you're saying, Love Legacy 500. Because I've read documentations of some of these European explorers about at least my folks, the Saponi people in Virginia. And the way they describe the Saponi people, pretty much mahogany and complexion. And thick. And not thick like really, really big, but not skinny women. And the hair was kind of curly, put in a bun, kind of like on the side like this. And this was, I want to say it was back in 1600s or 1700s, probably more so 1600s, how they described supposedly people in that region in Virginia. So mahogany, hello, mahogany is not light skin. My brown brothers and sisters out there, you know what I'm talking about. So some people may say, well, not anybody with color does not necessarily mean that they are linked to Black Africans. At the same time, I can see some truth that there may possibly have been Black African folks here mixing with indigenous folks before Europeans stepped foot on this continent. Europeans are not the only group of people that explored the world. They weren't the only ones who had the financial means to sail the ocean blue. And the Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida region, maybe even Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, you know, all of those areas, that coastal area where you had that, the Gulf Stream, how it's just easy for ships to kind of go in that direction and come back up like that along the Atlantic seaboard. Anything's possible. Anything is possible. But again, Love Legacy 500, that is a controversial topic. And I am not the one, I am not the one to sit here and say that all indigenous American people are Black. Now, I do believe that many people are linked to somebody who happened to be Black in Africa somewhere. And then we just disperse throughout the centuries, right? But I don't necessarily believe that all indigenous American people are Black. I don't believe that. But thanks for sharing your perspective and where you're coming from. Hi, Mary's Dog Rescue TV. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. You also say, I can try cornbread on the stove, hot water, or like cakes or in the oven. Okay. You know, I actually thought about making fry bread, but bake it. So it's not literally fried, it's baked. I thought about that thing two or 3 years ago, and I have yet to try to bake fry bread. And also changing the ingredients from white flour to something more healthier, like maybe almond flour, or what's another grain? It's not oil. There's a few flours out there that are better for you. And I can't think of it off the top of my head, but you know, just exchanging the white flour with another flour, right? So now that you mentioned baking it, I might try to give it a go before the end of this year. But I've been putting that off for a few years now, because I'm like, I would love to like make my own fry bread, but the healthier way, with flavor, with less, you know, just get rid of all white flour, white rice, you know, because it strips away all the nutrients that we need, and it just leaves you with a skeleton. And then when you eat stuff like that, it spikes your sugar, right? Glycemic index or whatever. And many of my indigenous and African American people, many of them suffer from complications pertaining to diabetes. Okay, Lloyd Carter, Powhatan language means densely inhabited land. Okay. Wouldn't that be Algonquin though? I feel like that's Algonquin. Maybe the Lenape dialect versus Lenape. I could be wrong because I don't know much about the Powhatan people. Let's see. Silly Songbird. It's funny. A lot of people think I'm half black and half Asian because of my eyes. Yeah, but my skin tone and features are more native with black admixture. Nice mixture. You got do you have the almond shaped eyes or just the eyes look very Asian? In my opinion, I think a lot of indigenous people from further west, and in Alaska, whatever, they look very Asian to me. I believe they have a strong genetic connection to Asia. So further west you go in the States, the more Asian looking they look. Like, again, the tribal leader of the Acoma Pueblo people I was telling you about, if you didn't know any better, you would think he was a Filipino guy. Like, and I know Filipinos, many of them are mixed with Spanish, like European Spanish, and a large mixture of Asian. So I don't know if it's Chinese. I don't know if it's Japanese. So you know what? I'm not even sitting here and trying to act like I know the makeup of Filipinos. I know Filipinos can have a very mixed ancestry. Okay. But anyway, to me, he looked like he was Filipino. Go figure. Let's see. Silly Somber says, have you met any Chalaki Cherokee? Yes, I have. One of my good friends has some Chalaki ancestry, but he chooses not to link up to that because that side of the family he doesn't really know. So I guess he just feels no connection to it. But yes, I've met some Chalaki people. I know there's different bands of them, and depending on which state, some are recognized, some aren't. So that's all I have to say about the Chalaki. I really don't know much about them. Oh, Taino. Peace, sis. Peace to you, brother. Thanks for tuning in. Hope all has been well with all of you guys. You guys who are watching and not commenting. You guys who are commenting. I hope life is treating you well. So Lloyd says, okay, yeah. Powhatan, yeah. It's Algonquin, yeah. Yeah, I thought so. That makes sense now. So you're saying the state of Virginia was called Senecumca? I'm sure I'm butchering this. I'm sure I am. I'm sorry. But this is the first time I've ever seen that word before. Yeah, almond-shaped eyes. Silly Somber, yeah. Yeah, I have those almond-shaped eyes too. You probably can't really tell because they're not as, noticeable right now in my life. But I don't know. I'll be back. I have this picture of myself. I actually posted this picture of myself in a video a few years ago. This is me when I graduated from college some time ago. And yeah, most people who have met me, they comment that my eyes have the almond shape to them. So yeah, I understand what you're saying, that almond shape kind of thing with the Yeah, I can see it. Right now, you may or may not can tell with the shape of my eyes, but they're typically known as almond-shaped eyes. Let's see. That might be all of the comments I'm getting today. And again, I thank you guys for watching. It's a little over an hour now. I think I got my point across. I think I got my point across. Again, people, just respect and honor your fellow sisters and brothers, and in particular, your fellow sisters and brothers of color. Because when you disrespect and dishonor them, you are ultimately disrespecting and dishonoring yourself. We're all family. And you all know you have certain family members that you don't necessarily need to see ever. You don't have to communicate with them ever. But at the same time, they're still family. So, Taino says, beautiful. Oh, thanks. And Silly Songbird says, laugh out loud. I guess whatever I just said was funny. I'll go back and watch this video to see what you were talking about, Silly Songbird. But yeah, just surround yourself, guys. Surround yourself with people who respect who you are, who do not require you to strip away certain aspects of your identity to fit in to what they think you should or shouldn't be. At this point in my life, I've gotten to a place where I don't care what other people have to say about my identity. Once upon a time, I did. Now, nope. And just like DNA tests, it does not show everything. They're, I guess, getting better. You know, over the years, they're getting better. The results are getting better. But it's not going to show you everything in your DNA. It's only going to show you a snapshot of it. And some of these people out here, they get disappointed because they're not seeing what they've been told they are. It's probably there. It's just not showing up. And guess what? Whatever came up, and it's like, I don't know, 10% or whatever you want to call it. Do you know how many ancestors? How many ancestors is 10% of your makeup? From the top of your head to the sole of your feet. 10%. If those 10% of ancestors didn't come together and thousands of years later, you would not have existed. So this whole tribal card thing, blood quantum thing, not enough, too much black, whatever. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. Because that 10% or whatever it is contributed to your makeup. It contributed to who you are. You are your ancestors and your ancestors are you. Your ancestors know who you are, baby. They walk with you. We just have to listen and know. That's all. So if someone wants to knock you or your DNA results, because I know plenty of people got DNA results, and I was one of them, right? They want to knock you for whatever percentage is not good enough or whatever. So you mean that drop of whatever blood that showed up on your DNA test that you're overlooking, that doesn't matter? Your behind wouldn't be here if that little drop or whatever that is over there didn't show up. If that ancestor or that group of ancestors didn't come together, you wouldn't be here. None of us would be here. None of us. So, Lloyd Carty, genealogy, the best way to find your ancestors. You know what? I agree. I'm a big advocate when it comes to genealogy. And however, many of you know that sometimes there is a huge wall. We ain't talking about the Trumpsters and what they want with this administration. We're not talking about them. We're talking about that brick wall that just stops everything because something in the records just does not add up or someone takes a missing, apparently. And so sometimes the genealogy just doesn't cut it. Sometimes the DNA test just doesn't cut it. I would suggest ask your ancestors. They already know. Ask them and see what happens. See if they'll give you their validation of who you are versus waiting for somebody else to write it down on a piece of paper or chisel it in some kind of structure so you can go back thousands of years and put the pieces back together. Sometimes some things are just not adequate enough, and you have to go to the next level to get those answers that you're seeking. And when it comes down to it, it's a spiritual thing. It's spiritual. That's probably missing link with a lot of our research. Some things are just not going to be written down. And like I said, with DNA tests, some parts of you just ain't going to show up. But it's there. So you just have to tap into that spiritual power. Ask for whatever answers you need and just sit back and wait. And allow our ancestors to unveil it to us. That's where you're going to get your answers. And it may not be good enough for federal recognition, but who cares at this point? Who cares? Who cares? I am an advocate for buying back land, baby. Buybacks. And if you watch Yellowstone, I believe. Was it Yellowstone? On the Paramount channel. Yeah. They were talking about buying back land. Now, of course, the characters in the show, the Indigenous chairman, chief, or whatever title you want to give him, he was very much in charge and he had a lot of money, the casino and all this. Long story short, he was talking about buying back a lot of land, baby. A lot of land. Keeping that culture strong, keeping the language tight, buying up the land and all of the places that, is very expensive real estate, and having it connect with their tribal community. That land has already been there, buying that land back, putting it together like a puzzle, and just building an empire. Buy back, baby. Buy back. because land is king when it comes to this area of, the Americas. Let's just put it that way. So I'm down with the buybacks, boo. Buybacks. And then you can decide at the end of the day, you can decide what curriculum your children going to have in their school, because it's designed to keep your children's culture intact and language. You get out there, go to school, do the whole urban thing if that's where you need to go, or metropolitan area, and then you go back and you create a space, a safe space for your community where they don't need recognition from an oppressed government. Generation after generation after generation begging for recognition. Begging. Do we not realize our royalty? Go ask an entity to recognize us for who we are. Honey, I am all about getting that land back and building on that land and having a curriculum for the next generation. Language is king, land is king, culture is king, and don't you ever forget about that spirituality. That gives us life. When you can do what you want to do for the betterment of your people on your land. And I've said this before about graduations, for instance. You go to some regular public school, and I'm sorry, guys, I'm hot. I'm in this loft, and this space is warm, okay? You all know it's a heat wave going on. Anyway, identity. And they want to go to a graduation and just wear something that links them to who they are. A feather on their cap. So when they walk across the stage, they are bringing that energy of all of their ancestors and that pride with them. And you have people who get uncomfortable because of a feather or because of a beaded cap or because someone's wearing dreads or someone wants to wear his or her crown that happens to be Afro textured. It's their crown. It's their antenna to their higher self. Nuh-uh. If you got your own thing, your own land, your own curriculum for your children, and have it set up, organized, or whatever you want to call it, everybody help each other the way it ought to be, then all of this back and forth begging for federal recognition wouldn't matter. It would not matter. Who cares if you want 1,000 acres of land and some, doing your own thing, not bothering anybody, just being self-sufficient? Who cares about the federal recognition? Again, to me, it's crumbs. Crumbs. That's all it is. You can still be who you are without the crumbs to validate who you are. No. Your ancestors validate who you are. That's who validates you. Not in a government that has oppressed your family. But then you have the tokens, as I call them, decked out at some of these powwows and you know, whatever establishments that they making money because they're sovereign on paper, domestic. We just have to do better, guys. This whole video, this whole live stream video started out with an article where this Dene mother raising with her Pamunkey husband 3 boys. And she comes from a matrilineal line where they will learn her language and her customs the best way she knows how, off the reservation in the DC metropolitan area, where there's so many more opportunities, but you have that, you know, that tug of war with tradition versus opportunities that you may not necessarily get on a reservation or in the ghetto or the hood or backwoods somewhere with no electricity. You know what I mean? And then yet again, you have some tribal police, in this case, a tribal police that look like a regular white woman with a piece of paper that says she's federally recognized, trying to dishonor, disrespect a Pamunkey man and his family, who chose, by the way, chose not to be enrolled. It was a choice. Would you want to have a chip installed in the back of your neck where someone's surveying you like cattle everywhere you go? You got to show identification outside of your driver's license or your passport to get in and out of the country. Like, for real though? You think a cow or a horse or any other livestock want to be tagged? They want to be free. They want to be able to roam and come and go as they please without being monitored. So some of us have gotten off that bandwagon and have recognized that that federal recognition thing is all it does. It creates more division, and it continues that genocide, that cycle on and on and on. So the tokens over here, they've been put in position to be tribal police, and the numbers get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. On paper. On paper. You have Indigenous American people that are living outside of that culture and that identity every single day. Be it because they don't know, be it because they're ashamed, or be it because they weren't given the opportunity to. Because of, for instance, and I'm speaking from my perspective, because that sub-Saharan Black African blood apparently disqualifies people from tapping into that on paper. But I know one thing, baby. I'm going to be me. Through and through. I'm going to be me. And the only validation I need is my ancestors. They know me. They walk with me. Your ancestors walk with you too. Like, really, why, at this point in time, why the need for federal recognition? If you are self-sufficient, buy back that land, see what happened then. Let's see how difficult it would be to be federally recognized then, when you as a people already doing your own thing. you have other things to be concerned about and think about more so than a piece of paper or some document written on a piece of paper, typed up, what have you, printed on a piece of paper saying who you are. Like, duh. You just finding out? Really? So all of a sudden, these people just magically became Native American because they got the tribal federal recognition status. So what were you before the piece of paper? Before the oppressors recognized you? What were you then? What were you? Who were you? So this, again, is not a knock at people who are federally and state recognized, because I have friends, I have loved ones who are, and they're woke. And they try to get through a lot of their relatives and tribal members who are not. So I'm gonna read a few more comments. I think I got my point across. I had to get that off my chest. People need to just wake up and get over themselves. And the more you feed into this federal recognition process, the more it creates division. Not coming together, but separating. And the fewer people, right, on paper that are Indigenous American, on paper, then you will see more of the breakdown of the spirituality and the language, the culture, and everything. But I got a word for you. All of those people that are not accounted for are hidden in plain sight. And you know what? That might be the best. That might actually be the best position to be in as an Indigenous American. You're under the radar. And you can get a lot of stuff done when you're not being watched like cattle. So let's see what you guys were saying. And then I have to go because I haven't taken a shower. I haven't eaten dinner. I just needed to get this off my chest. So thanks, guys, for watching. Thanks for those who have commented. Thanks to those who are going to comment later. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate your feedback. We're all growing, right? We're all growing. We're all getting through this life together. If not in the same area, we're somewhere on this planet on a wavelength. And we're getting through it together. Let's see. Okay. And then Taino said, I don't care what they have to say. We are the originals and nothing they can do that will change that. Pretty much. Still I rise. Still we rise. DNA so-called companies are fraud. Again, with DNA testing, I just believe that it just doesn't show everything. But then some people are getting their dogs tested, right? And apparently the dogs are from like China or Europe somewhere. So I'm like, wait a minute. Really? Let's see. You can't use saliva to find a tribe. Okay. DNA test is just for finding family members. I'm Indigenous, but it says I'm 70% African when I'm like 70% American Indian. Yeah. Tribes are, Okay, let's say this for example. You have a family. Let's say you have 5 daughters, right? They all get married eventually. And when they get married, they are married into another family. And their spouse is married into your family, right? The spouses are not related for the most part to their wives, right? The husbands are not related to their wives, but now they're part of the same family. I look at tribes like that. They may not all be blood related, but they married and mingled and everything like that, and they're one big family, one big tribe. I have uncles that married into the family. I'm not blood related to them, but they're my family. They are officially my family now. You have people who are adopted. They're not blood related, but they're family because you have adopted them into your family. So that's how I look at tribes. So as far as the whole DNA test thing, trying to find your tribe or whatever like that, I understand what you're saying, Taino, about that. At the same time, the DNA test can actually link you up with someone who you actually are blood related to. Because I think 23andMe, they have this thing set up at Ancestry.com where you can find cousins or even close relatives. Maybe you were adopted and you find out that your half-sister took a DNA test, and then maybe one day y'all can meet up. So DNA test has its good side, like paternal DNA tests, to see if someone is related to you by blood. Not necessarily tribe or anything like that, but if there are people in a tribe, they're enrolled or whatever you want to call it, and you find out that you are related to them through DNA, that could be your ticket into being recognized amongst that community, right? Let's see. Silly Songbird says, my roots are in Okmulgee. Okay, I've never heard of that before, but thanks for sharing. Let's see. It's in a native town in Oklahoma, by the way. Oh, okay. I've never heard of that. See, I learn something all the time, every day. Thanks for sharing that. I had no clue. I really don't know much about Oklahoma. I thought about visiting Oklahoma. Just never gotten around to going. By the way, have you dated any Native man before? If so, what's your experience with them? Yes. And I would say one, not men, but one person. And it's not all romantic. You know how some people romanticize Native men, which is kind of comical. But you remember, those who've been following me, how I would like read all these books, romance novels, and they happen to be Native American men, and they happen to be African American Black women. And so I kind of got caught up in that. Some of those stereotypes in those books I did experience. The possessiveness, that was cute initially, but then after that, it's kind of like, actually 2 guys. Let me take that back. In high school, and then when I became an adult. The one in high school, he was very possessive, he was fine as hell, but he was possessive. He used to walk around on a machete knife and would get pissed off if any guy wanted to even say hi to me. That didn't last long, by the way. It was puppy love, but I do remember him, and I remember he was indigenous, and he was also Black. His mom was trying to remember what her tribal community, but they lived in Chicago, and he was down in North Carolina. I don't know how long he was down there, but I think they relocated to North Carolina. And then as a grown woman, the man that I took time with, I should say, there was some jealousy. Yeah. There was some jealousy, and still working on that. But not every Native guy is the same, just like not every Black guy is the same, not every white guy is the same, not every Asian guy is the same, whatever. Everyone is different. But there are some truth in some stereotypes, and that aggressiveness I did experience. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if it's like the whole possessive thing. I don't know where it comes from. That's all I'm saying. I don't know where. But yeah, that's pretty much my experience. I don't want to get too much into it because it's getting late, and you know, I kind of like to keep my private life private. Let's see. I don't need a foreigner to recognize me. I recognize myself. Okay. Taino. Yep. Right on. Mary's Dog Rescue. That was what I was trying to find. Okay. You and Silly Song were discussing something. Lloyd Carter says DC is where my matrilineal comes from. Okay. Would that be Piscataway? Because Piscataway pretty much are the original people. If I think the original people, maybe there is another indigenous group in the DC area, like DC and Maryland. But I know the Piscataway are, you know, DC itself, DC, Piscataway land, right? Piscataway people. And then Maryland, Piscataway. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they have different bands, by the way, of Piscataway people. But yeah, DC definitely is Piscataway. So that's why I'm asking if you have Piscataway connection, Lloyd Carter. Mary P says, peace and blessings, kindred. Peace, blessings. Thanks for stopping by. I'm about to end this video like I've mentioned before, but thanks for stopping by. Maybe you'll get a chance to start it over again once I'm done with this video to check out what I was talking about earlier. Silly Songbird says, do you do beadwork or any crafts? Okay. No, I don't do any crafts. And I thought about this thing the other day. One of the elders that I've had a chance to get to know over the years, she tried to push me into making regalia and getting out into the circle and all of that at powwows, and I'm just like, I'm not feeling it. I don't do the arts and craft thing and whatever. But now that I am kind of graduating spiritually, I realize that whenever you make something, regardless of what it is, be it a meal, regalia, a piece of art, like I'm so proud of my artwork. But it's like when you make something yourself that has medicine, it has power. It's your medicine, it's your power. And so to answer your question, no, I don't do beadwork and crafts and stuff, but I feel like I need to tap into that part of my heritage. Now, my mom, she loves arts and crafts. Like, she's so handy. Like, if you go into a Michael's store or any kind of store like that, she can make anything. Like, she can go to a yard sale or whatever, and you would think she bought it from Michael's. She's just really handy with the glue gun and everything. No, not necessarily. But I think that, again, I want to be able to amplify my own medicine, right? And I want to be able to create things. And by doing so, I will be able to tap into that spiritual element that I'm on the quest to capture. I see claps from Marlon P. I guess I said something and I got it right on. And then Mary Dog Rescue says, I think that being extremely private is native straight. I am, okay. I am an introvert. What I'm doing right now with you guys, I am in the comfort of my space. I don't see you. I don't see your eyeballs, right? You're not talking to me verbally. You're typing, but you're not talking to me, right? So as an introvert, I'm also not as open to share everything. You have to be very, very close to me. And I can count those that are close to me on one hand that I will share a lot of information with. I think some people just share too much. And that might be great for reality TV, you know, drama, whatever. But I just choose to not share too much of my private life. Not saying that I have this amazing, steamy lifestyle, because that can be kind of boring, right? Hello, I love genealogy and I love to read. But at the same time, I think opening up a little bit more will actually captivate my audience more, where they can relate to me. Because sometimes if you don't open up just a little bit, then people they don't know where you're coming from, or they don't understand where you're coming from, because you're not giving them every detail. So I just assume that those who watch my videos can read between the lines, but not always the case. And I know sometimes if I say things and I'm not being direct, that can also turn some people off. And within 5 to 10 minutes of my video, they click off and move on with life. And, you know, it is what it is. Mary P says, I am too. You must be a Virgo. No, I'm a Libra. I'm balanced. Well, at least I'm seeking balance in life. So yeah, I am a Libra. I just thought about something. I actually met, maybe almost 2 weeks ago, I met Freddie Cole, jazz vocalist, pianist, sorry, and who happens to be the brother of Nat King Cole. And I had the honor to see him perform at a jazz bar, place, or whatever. And I just thought about him because he's a Libra as well. That's why I thought about him. But yeah, that was awesome. I met him, and after he performed, because he's up in age, he's like almost 90, I think. One of my loves was asked to go back in the back and meet him. And then a few minutes later, I went in there because there was something going on with the credit card, and I had to get his attention so he can clear that up. But I walked in and I met Freddie Cole's son, and I shook his hand and I was like, thank you so much for sharing your gift. I really enjoyed, the performance or whatever. And he said, oh, thank you so much. And then I went over to Freddie Cole, and he was sitting down. And I went over, I kind of reached down and I grabbed his hand and I said, thank you so much for sharing what you do. In so many words, I was saying thank you for, I said, it is an honor to meet you. And it's been an honor to listen to you share your gift. And I said it in so many words like that. And he looked up at me and he had this, like his eyes just lit up and he was like, well, thank you. It's an honor to meet you too. And then my friend was like, do you mind if we get a picture of you? And Freddie Cole was like, oh, I don't mind. So I took the picture of them two. And then it was my turn. So I went over to him. I said, do you mind if I take a picture with you? He was like, that would make my day. Like that. I was like, okay. So yeah, so he's a Libra. Let's see. Hi, Miss Coco Monroe. Hi, you're an Aquarius. Nice to meet you. Thanks for watching. Okay, Taurus in the house. Taurus rising. Okay, I am, from what I've learned from my chart, which I did on my own through Googling. So I don't know how accurate it is because I don't know what time I was born. So I just guessed. But my rising sun is Libra and my moon is what is it? I have it written down somewhere. Okay, that's going to be another video, guys. I'm going to talk about what I found out about my moon sign and all that stuff, because that in of itself is also a long drawn out video. And it's going on 2 hours with this video. Nice to meet you. I like your YouTube name. Oh, thanks, Miss Coco Monroe. I changed it a few years ago because the initial name was offensive to some people. It wasn't politically correct. And it was called Black-American Indian. I think that's what it was called. And so Indian, for a lot of people, it's kind of like when someone calls a Black person colored. You know, the times are different, and a lot of Black people don't want to be called colored or Negro. So anyway, I changed it to Black and Indigenous American. And so I think by referencing Indigenous, that may have satisfied some people that were offended. Also, Native American, that can also be a title that could be also controversial. And I said it because if you're born in a country, then you're native to the country, right? Versus someone who was indigenous, you know, one of the original people in that area. But thanks for giving me a compliment on the name change. You say, Miss Coco Monroe says, I'm Aqua in Sun, Aries in Moon, in Taurus rising. Okay, cool. You have Black Indian books. Hey, you should check out my other video if you haven't already. This video that I think it was two. It was part 1, part 2, maybe even a part 3 on book reviews. And many of those books were of interracial relationships between Indigenous person and a Black person. So I suggest you go check out my book reviews. And there's this one book, I absolutely loved it. I still love it. It's on my Kindle. I might even start reading it again. I think I literally think I read that book. I'm saying like 3 or 4 times, like for real. Non-stop reading that book was probably 12 hours straight. Non-stop. And it was Clayton's Tempest, I believe that's what it was called. Anyway, you can check it out. You say you're Choctaw and Black Cherokee. Well, welcome. Welcome. And you know what? That combination is not rare at all. Don't worry about people say about your name and there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. Yeah, but at the same time, I kind of was like, yeah, I think I need to kind of tweak it a bit because indigenous is at this point in time is more accurate than saying Indian. Because obviously we know Indian was a term given to indigenous people in the West Indies, and then eventually got over here, Columbus thinking that he was in India, but really he was in the Caribbean. And I say all of this because he was wrong. There's a lot of stuff he did that was wrong, but he was wrong. But yet we still kind of continue, using words that are wrong. But, hey, and you have people who are Indigenous American and don't mind being called Indian. Don't mind being called Native American. It doesn't matter. But Indigenous American, in my opinion, is more accurate for the times. I don't have another channel on YouTube. I've thought about actually creating another channel to kind of be more topic specific because I'm all over the place with this particular YouTube channel. This YouTube channel was just me talking about what I cared about at the moment. And people just happened to either disliked it or liked it. And I had a lot of views for certain topics, not all topics. But now it has gotten to the point where I'm not always talking about race. I'm not always talking about powwows and stuff like that. Like, I rarely even talk about powwows now. Like, I have narrowed down my powwows to like maybe 2 or 3 a year. And that's because the energy there at those powwows that I go to, it's worth the travel. It's worth the time. It's worth the effort to get there. But yeah, I don't really talk about powwows and dancing and regalia and relationships with, interracial relationships. That's just, part of my life. But I don't really talk about it. And also, that's about it for now. This room is hot, y'all. And yes, I've been patting my forehead and nose and everything, trying not to look like a hot mess. But yeah, I gotta end this video. But it's been great. It's been a pleasure to interact with you guys live. I'm thinking I may possibly do another live video tomorrow, but I've been talking almost 2 hours and I really don't have much else to say at the moment. Guys, give me some ideas what to talk about. Because, I'll get on here and just start talking about whatever, I find is important. And don't even consider what you guys want to hear. Nowadays on YouTube, you kind of got to tailor your topics on what your audience want to hear. I'm not going to necessarily be fake, but if there's a particular topic that I haven't covered, you're more than welcome to share your opinions about it. That's all I have to say for now. So Miss Coco Monroe, thanks for chiming in. Be sure to go back and watch the beginning of this live stream video. And, Silly Songbird says, have you noticed how native Pharaoh looks? You talking about for real? From Virginia, right? The I guess you can call him pop R&B artist. Yeah, I saw that from day one. But people publicly identify as being Black. And sometimes people identify as being Black publicly because it's less backlash, maybe. If he would have came out saying he was X, Y, Z but Black, maybe the Black community would have turned their back on him. You know, all that stuff happens. You got a lot of people who claim Black in public because they don't want the Black community to disown them, and this record sales and all that go down. You have a lot of that going on. But yeah, for real, yeah. He's a fellow Virginian, y'all. Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. Now, the whole headdress thing, that's another thing that we could talk about at another time. I know he got some backlash from wearing a headdress because he's not a chief, number one. You don't just put on a headdress just because you have Indigenous American ancestry or connection or you're a descendant. You don't put a headdress on. I had mixed feelings about that. But at the same time, I knew. I mean, he's from Virginia. I mean, looks isn't everything, right? But come on now. If that dude had down to his butt crack, straight Floyd black hair with a feather in his hair, nobody will blink an eye. But so many people are so blinded by either the skin color or the hair texture or lack thereof. They get like, I don't know, they just get like blinded or something. It's like, can you look past skin color, please? Like, put these two people together. One is darker, the other one is lighter. They look exactly the same, but for whatever reason, you can't get past the skin color. It's like, get past the skin color, then you will see, you know. But yeah, I like Pharrell. Yeah, he's different. I like his style. And he's a fellow Virginian, so can't hate on him, right? But some things you kind of have to be, got to be careful, because even though many of us are linked to indigenous populations, we may not necessarily been raised in that culture, and so there can be culture clashes, even though you are who they are, but culturally you're not. You see what I'm saying? Like, and I'm thinking of this right now. You have a child who is biracial. The mother happened to be white. This mother is from an area where it's very white as far as culture. And when I say culture, I'm not talking about ethnic culture. I'm just saying just white American culture. And then you have the father that is not. Well, that child spent a whole lot of time with the mother, and then eventually grows up and just cannot relate to her father's side of the family, her father's people, because she spent so much time with her white mother. Even though she's linked to her father's people, there's that culture clash thing, right? She wasn't raised around that. She wasn't brought up around that. She's related to it, but she's not brought up that way. So then you have some sensitive topics, and with the whole headdress thing, that's a very sensitive topic. And, you know, you have to be real careful, because language, culture, once you get past the race thing, there's so much more to learn about a people than the race. And each community is different. You go to, I mean, even with powwows, every powwow is not set up the same. You know, sometimes they dance clockwise. Other powwows, they dance counterclockwise. You know, some powwows are less tedious about everything. Others are very strict about the rules. So, you know, you kind of got all of that going on. Okay, I'm depleted now, but I appreciate the interaction. I thank you guys. Blessings, blessings, blessings to all of you. Be blessed, stay blessed, take care, be a blessing to others. And until next time, toodles.